Hello everyone, I'm John Lorden. Welcome to another edition of BrainScratch Searchlight. And before we get started on this case, I have to give a big thank you to Jane Billingham. We're going to learn a little bit more about her at the very end of this episode, but she sent in a bunch of the research that we're about to take a look at in this case. Thank you so much for the help on this, Jane. This is the case of Michael Negrete. We have a photo of him here from charleyproject.org. And of course, we're going to take a look at their write-up on what happened around this case. Michael is another college student gone missing. And I know I've covered several of these cases where the college student has been a female, but there are also cases of males that go missing, and that is what we're going to be looking at here. So let's jump right into the charleyproject.org. Vital statistics at time of disappearance. We can see he's been missing since December 10th, 1999 from Los Angeles, California. He was a UCLA student, and I know 1999 sounds like it was quite a while ago. What's really interesting about this case is, you know, the popularity of the internet and putting materials on the internet was starting to come into its age around this time. So I have been able to piece together some articles and some information, of course with Jane's help, that I think will give us a bit of a complete picture about this, but it's not as clear as some of the other cases that we cover where it's only been a few years ago, simply because there's just so much more information to review and we can kind of draw better parallels with that info. So there are some mysterious elements to this case. I'll be sure to point those out as we go along, but let's continue here. Classification: endangered missing. Date of birth March 25th, 1981. He was 18 years old at the time that he went missing. 5'8", 130 pounds, Caucasian male, brown hair, brown eyes. Negrete had a crew cut at the time of his 1999 disappearance. His biceps and neck muscles are well developed. Negrete's nickname is Mike. He was wearing a blue plaid shirt, khaki shorts, and white shoes. And the shoes are a little bit of a point of contention. There has been a lot of banter on message boards about, was he wearing shoes, was he not wearing shoes? Essentially, there was an article written at one point that stated that his shoes were found in his dorm room. And I don't know that that necessarily means that those were his only pair of shoes. I did find other sources that say he was wearing some type of white canvas shoe when he disappeared. Some people are referring to that as some type of slipper. Based on all the stuff that I've read, it seems to me more like it's either like maybe a pair of Vans or something like that. But there's a lot of hubbub around these shoes, and quite honestly, I don't think it really adds a whole lot one way or the other to the case, because him leaving without his wallet and his keys, which were certainly found in his dorm room, that's a big mystery. Why are you going to leave the dorms without those items? I mean, how are you even going to get back in is kind of a question. I do believe that there was a key card system. He might have had that key card with him. Details of disappearance. Negrete was a freshman at the University of California in Los Angeles, UCLA, in 1999. He lived on the 6th floor of Dykstra Hall Dormitory on campus, which is located near the intersection of Gailey Avenue and Strathmore Boulevard. I did pull up a map. Let's take a look at it real quick. So down here we have Gailey, and it's even showing that there's a bus stop close by here. Here's Dykstra Hall right here. So this kind of gives you a bit of an idea of the layout. Negrete had been playing a computer game with a friend for several hours. The game ended at approximately 4 a.m. on December 10th, 1999, and he logged off of his computer at that time. Negrete's roommate awoke at 9 a.m. and discovered Negrete had disappeared. Authorities believe he left his room between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. that day. All of Negrete's personal belongings, including his clothing, shoes, wallet, and musical instruments, were left behind in his residence. He has never been heard from again. Search dogs tracked Negrete's scent to Sunset Boulevard and Bellagio Street in Los Angeles, but no other evidence was located. I did also add that location on the map so we can take a look at the path he might have taken. So here's Sunset Boulevard, And here's where it meets Bellagio Road. Now, I did look for Bellagio Street and I couldn't find any results on that. I might be incorrect, so if you are in the California area, if you know this area, if there is a Bellagio Street and that is at a different point on Sunset, please be sure to add that to the comments below so that we can check that out. I've heard varying reports on this too. People are saying that that bus stop was only about a mile away, which is kind of what it looks like according to my map that I ran on it. Other people are saying that it was more like 5 miles away. That doesn't seem to line up with other people explaining that this is a bus stop that was close to the Bel Air area. So I believe that this is likely the area that we're talking about. But what's strange about that is, why is he going to this bus stop when, like I noted, right here, very close to his dorm, he's got a bus stop down here as well. Now, I do realize not all buses run on those specific routes, so if he was looking to go somewhere else, maybe that's why he had to truck up there. But once again, why is he going without his wallet, without his keys? I really have no idea. Negrete did not have a vehicle at UCLA. He left behind his parents and 2 younger brothers. His family said they could not uncover any hidden secret he may have had at the time, which would have led to his disappearance. Authorities have few leads in Negrete's case. The prominent psychic Sylvia Browne appeared on the Montel Williams show and spoke about Negrete. She claimed she had a vision that Negrete was alive and living close to UCLA, possibly in the towns of Brentwood or Westwood. There is no proof to back up Browne's claims, however, and Negrete's mother has stated that she does not believe them. I'm very unsure how he would be living in those areas. Those are pretty expensive areas to live in. Unless someone was taking care of him and covering all his bills, I think it is highly unlikely that he would be remaining and living in those areas. I would like to believe that the authorities have been checking. I know that they have checked on his credit cards, even his Ralph's Club card, and there's no activity on any of those. However, if he needed to get a job at some point, he probably would use his social security number. I would like to think that they've checked that and made sure that there's been no activity, but I haven't seen anything to properly confirm that. Negrete is described as having a loud, sudden laugh. He says "doop" when he is pleased. He sings jazz songs to himself. He does not like bare feet. He recites trivia dealing with the Simpsons television series, and he enjoys computer and video games. Negrete is also a skilled trumpet and steel drum player. Negrete's case remains unsolved, but police suspect foul play. At the time he went missing, he was a good student and had a music scholarship. Authorities are investigating his disappearance as a homicide. And we do also have a NAMUS database entry about him here, just kind of once again going over the statistics, vital stats, and there's a little bit more information here in the circumstances, so let's take a look at this together. He had been playing a computer video game, competing against a friend in another room through an intranet connection. When the game was over about 4 a.m., he signed off, went outside his room, and congratulated his friends he had been playing against. The two then turned and went back to their rooms. No one can remember seeing Negrete after that. Here I'm wondering, did he get back to his room after he met with these guys? Was he going around congratulating the people that he had been playing with? Was there others that were part of this game as well that he was going to go and high five or, say good job, thanks for playing? I think this is really the one little sliver that we have that might point to his motivation for why he has left his room without all of his things, especially if he thought he was just going to stay in the building. But here we know that he definitely had some motivation because he wanted to leave the room and go congratulate those other players that he was playing with. And here, this is from islandfever.com. They've got a page, Help Us Find Mike Negrete. He is the UCLA student who disappeared from his dorm room on December 10th, 1999. He is a very talented musician and a very good person. For 2 years, 1997 through 1999, Michael Negrete played steel drum and trumpet in the Island Fever band, mostly during the summertime. Many San Diego residents and visitors have seen him performing with us at the San Diego Zoo and other places. And here we've got a shot of him with his trumpet and his steel drums. So very cool that his band has put this page together. They've also been very active in trying to find him. They've had a couple of different charity concerts. I believe one of the band members also joined several committees that were trying to help find Michael in the early days. Using the Wayback Machine, I was able to find his family's official website. If you've ever used the Wayback Machine, you know, the website can get busted up a little bit, but most of the core text is still in place. So I'm going to have a link for this in the description box below. You can come here and read it. His mom started a chain email that she was hoping would help raise awareness to this. That's another reason why I really wanted to cover this case today. I searched for Michael Negrete on YouTube, and outside of a few list videos I've heard reference to, there is really nothing on YouTube about his case. And there's also a lot of other people named Michael Negrete, so it's a bit of a mixed up search. Here on Unposted.com, we get a little more insight into the last night that Michael was seen. On December 10th, 1999, Michael attended a party on his dorm floor on the UCLA campus with friends. They sipped margaritas and listened to music. After leaving the party, Michael went to his room and played a computer video game through an intranet connection, competing against a friend that was in another room on the campus. Around 4 a.m. they finished the game. Michael went outside his room to congratulate the other student he was playing against, then went back to his room. So this one's even a little bit different than we heard on NAMUS. On NAMUS, it sounded like he was playing against 2 other people. Here, it sounds like it was 1. You know, typically the NAMUS database is kind of the official record of this, so I think I would say that that is the more reliable source. Police searched the dorm's garbage and every construction site on campus, but found nothing. Investigators tracked down dozens of UCLA students who had lived in the dorm. No one knew or saw anything. The family offered a $100,000 reward. Hundreds of volunteers and friends searched for Michael everywhere and found nothing. Dogs tracked his scent to a local bus stop. That is where the trail ended. Now, I did find a little more information about that piece of info, about the dogs tracking the scent. This is from an article that came out several years after, and we have the investigators talking to the LA Times about this case. And here is a quote from that article. They quickly decided they couldn't trust the bloodhound's trail, figuring the dog was probably confused. I think they believed the dog was confused because I heard that the trail that the dog followed did this crazy zigzag pattern and didn't seem like it was following a particular path that he would have taken, or any type of direct path that he would have taken to get from his dorm room to that bus stop. So now even the inspectors themselves are kind of doubting the validity of that evidence. And if you rule that out, him going up to Sunset and Bellagio, we pretty much don't have anything except his roommate waking up in the morning and Michael is nowhere to be seen. Or do we? Now, here's another point of contention that's been kicked around the message boards, and I read through the complete message boards at WebSleuths, Reddit, and another one I can't remember off the top of my head right now. And there is a bit of conversation about, was there footage of him leaving? Apparently it was reported somewhere that there was some type of camera at the dorm that did capture him leaving. I did hear people say, well, there was footage of someone leaving, but they're not positive it was him. It was someone that kind of matched his description. And then I've heard from other people, no, there were no cameras in the dorms at that time. Any cameras that were there were dummies. There was no footage captured. So very hard to really find the truth in that matter. However, it's fair to say that no footage was ever publicly released specifically of him leaving the dorms. So this raises the question at this point, did whatever happened to him in the building, or did he get outside of the building and then bump into something? I really don't know. A question that comes up frequently, and I don't know if it's particularly helpful or if it's just trivia that people are looking for, but frequently on these message boards people are asking, what game was he playing? And there doesn't appear to be a solid answer to that question. However, I did find some suggestions here on Reddit that might be able to answer that for us. 1999 was a good year for computer games with EverQuest. Team Fortress Classic, Counter-Strike, Command and Conquer, Tiberian Sun, Half-Life, Unreal Tournament, Quake 3 Arena, and many others being available. I did find a few references that mentioned Quake in particular. It's very hard to know for sure, but this is an 18-year-old kid. It just kind of depends on what his taste was in video games, and unfortunately, we don't really have good information on that. I did bump into an article at DailyBruin.com about this case. This article was done several years after, and we have a little quote here from one of the investigators, Howell. Usually when someone wants to disappear, they take something they want. Everything that meant anything to Michael was left in the room. And that is obviously to address the thought that he disappeared on his own accord, which is something that frequently comes up. Was he under stress in school? Was there some... Now, we know he's coming up on his winter break here, so he was likely preparing for some big tests before that happened. Thursday night is kind of known to be a party night, I guess, at UCLA, so all of that seems to fit with him going out that night, having some drinks, playing games until 4 o'clock in the morning. But the question of him leaving of his own accord, personally, I just find it hard to believe, once again, because he didn't take any resources with him. He would have had to have some deal lined up with someone that said, I'm just going to pay for everything, I'm going to take care of you, hop in the car and let's go. That's another thing. He didn't have his own car there. So many questions in this case that are very difficult to answer. Now, apparently his brother Steve did have a blog at Tumblr. It's no longer there, but this is a quote, and I just have to give out a slight warning because I can't verify this quote. I did see several references to this blog existing, and then I bumped into this quote, so I think it's solid information. Otherwise, I wouldn't share it with you. But apparently this is quoted from his brother's blog. I have a personal grudge against ecstasy, however. This next part is a very personal tale for me, but upon reflection, I can't believe it's taken me this long to bring it up. More exposure is always better in this circumstance. Anywho, the story is, I lost a brother back in 1999, and I believe that drugs were a critical component that led to his disappearance. Michael Negrete was a freshman at UCLA when he mysteriously disappeared from his dorm room in the wee hours of December 10th, 1999. He'd been playing a computer game with a friend for several hours. The game ended at approximately 4 a.m., at which time he logged off his computer. At 9 a.m., his roommate woke up and discovered that he was nowhere to be found. He had left behind all his personal belongings, including his clothes, shoes, wallet, and musical instruments. He has not been seen nor heard from since. Disappeared, vanished, missing. If you want to read the known information about the story, you can visit, and then he has a link to the charleyproject.org profile. What the report doesn't mention is that Mike's friends verified that he had been attending raves and experimenting with different drugs, most notably ecstasy, in the weeks before the disappearance. My personal theory is that he was under the influence of ecstasy or some other substance, left the dorm for whatever reason, and was picked up by one of those people your mother warns you about. Theories abound, but none have ever led to results. I actually laughed out loud when I read about the Sylvia Browne psychic vision. Anyone who takes stock in that nonsense is living in a fantasy world. Mike was unbelievably smart, a damn near genius trumpet player, and incredibly charismatic. He was also damn athletic and way strong enough to defend himself if need be. To me, the only explanation is one that involves him being out of his right mind, and the simplest cause for that is drugs and alcohol. And this is a theory that gets kicked around a lot, and people try to counter this theory with, you know, is someone really going to do ecstasy and then sit down for several hours and play video games? I don't have knowledge or experience with that, so I can't say for sure, but based off the stereotype of the rave culture and ecstasy use, seems like it's a little hard for me to believe that that is how he would choose to spend his time. This also leads to the theory maybe he was done playing games, but he wanted to keep partying for the night. Was he going out to potentially meet a drug dealer of some kind? Once again, you have to ask the question, why did he leave his wallet and his keys in the room if that was the case? Possibly he took cash with him, but leaving your wallet when you're going to meet a drug dealer seems a little, it just doesn't seem like a perfect fit for that story either for me. Another theory that is talked about a lot in these threads is the possibility that he was talking to someone that night while he was playing games. We know that he did have an AOL instant messaging account. The name of it was TrainFan1. There's a little blurb on the family's website about the fact that that account came back to life some years later, but that was because a new user had just taken that name since it had freed up from the system. They looked into that. Police verified that person had nothing to do with his disappearance. So the theory around that is, was he potentially talking to someone romantically? Some people are speculating maybe he was experimenting with homosexuality or something along those lines, and he had a date or someone that was coming to pick him up or meet with him, potentially to visit him that evening. There's not a lot of information that I can find to support any of that. It's one of those theories that I think makes sense for people because they're considering that he would have been overpowered by someone, and I think for most of us in our minds we're thinking, oh well, it's a man, it's some type of older man then that must have done all this. And an interesting thing that did shake out around this, which kind of I think helps people think that theory, I don't know if it really supports it or not, is about 7 months after this investigation started, apparently a new piece of information came out about a man that was sighted in the dorm around 4:30 in the morning that night. A 35-year-old man. They actually made a composite sketch of him. We have it here. This is it on the right side. This guy on the left side is someone that they think matches the sketch, who is a family friend. We'll get into a little bit more information on that soon. But here on the right, this is the sketch that they drew up about the 35-year-old that was apparently seen there. Some type of shiny gray jacket with a turquoise emblem he was wearing, apparently. Once again, if you do believe that there might have been some type of lover situation going on here, some people are thinking maybe that guy might be related. I don't know how much to put into that because I don't see enough evidence to really support that theory. But let's continue. So that man on the left side of the picture, his name is Damon Van Damme. So once again, let's take a look. This is Damon Van Damme on the left side. And it is a pretty striking resemblance to me. I do think that a composite sketch, if someone was to describe this man to someone, this is a pretty good composite that would come out of it. I do also think that that could be many, many other people though. I mean, you're looking at a middle-aged white guy, has a bit of a narrow bridge on his nose, has, maybe a little bit of a thin upper lip, but it is compelling. It certainly is compelling. What's more compelling is there is some connection between Damon Van Damme and Michael Negrete. Damon Van Damme is apparently a friend of Michael's father, and I did see some information that possibly Michael liked to play video games with Damon. I don't know how reliable that is. It seems kind of weak in the places that I found it, but it is out there. So the theory is that maybe Damon was saying, hey Michael, let's go, we're having a video game party somewhere, I'll come pick you up and we'll go play some more, or something like that. I really don't know how much to put into that. But another weird wrinkle in this Damon Van Damme angle is he went on a show, it's an AM talk show in LA called John and Ken, and gave a phone interview. And when he was being asked questions about someone else's disappearance, which apparently he did not do, although I do think that case is still unsolved. I didn't really look into that case on its own yet, but I do believe that case is still unsolved. He came up with this quote that would kind of make you think twice. We were in South Florida in 1981 when Adam Walsh was kidnapped. I was in Los Angeles in 1999 when Michael Negrete disappeared. I'm a friend of Miguel Negrete, Michael's father, and I worked with the men when it happened. This article is saying this was stunning. None of the interviewers had asked Damon if he or his wife Brenda were ever involved in other missing persons cases or in searches for dead children. So it does seem kind of weird that he would offer up that information. Is this guy related to the Adam Walsh case? It's just nutty. Where does that comment come from? I wish I could hear the tape for myself so I could give some better context to it, but unfortunately all I have is the article to go off of. Also, there is one other person that has been discussed as potentially looking like the composite drawing. This comes off of WebSleuths, and we had someone say that they thought the witness being sought resembled Mark Collins' Rector. And here's a little quote about who that is. A 54-year-old registered sex offender who was suspected of running a sex ring where Hollywood executives abused underage boys seemingly vanished in 2007, BuzzFeed reports. I don't know if you remember hearing about that lawsuit about Bryan Singer being tied up in some type of sex ring, but this is somewhat related to that. It continues, Mark Collins' Rector was the host of parties at his California mansion where boys were abused. At least this was alleged in the lawsuit. If I recall correctly, that lawsuit got completely dropped. So I don't know about the validity of that lawsuit. But I did find a picture of Mark Collins' Rector here. So once again, like I said, I think it's kind of hard to say it's a total match, but he does, middle-aged white guy, you know, the hairline is actually pushing from the correct side. Thin nose, but not quite as thin, a little bit thicker. Lips are a little bit fuller, but I don't know, it's very tough. But these composite sketches are extremely valuable, and that's part of why as we close this case out, I wanted to bring your attention to drawingforjustice.com, and this is the website for the researcher that helped me with today's episode, Jane Billingham. And I don't know if you've seen the other Searchlights where I've talked about this, but I really appreciate that there are artists that are donating their time to learn this talent to help these cases. And in some cases, those sketches are extremely, extremely critical. And Jane is one of those very special people that has dedicated her life to that. So thank you, Jane, for your work in doing that and for bringing this case to me. I really appreciate that we're able to highlight a case that, quite frankly, does not have a lot of exposure on YouTube. I hope everyone out there watching will dig into this case. Hit the links in the description box below. Share it with people in the Los Angeles area. His family's from San Diego. You can also share it in the San Diego area. Let's get some more attention brought back to this case, and hopefully we can do something so that Michael's family can find the answers that they're so desperately seeking. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of Searchlight. I will see you on the next show on the Geek and Dorks channel. Take care and stay safe.